Hi, welcome back to Beginner Basics. We are going to learn how to do the turning chain, meaning how are we going to work into that turning chain after we have done all of our stitches. It can be a little bit difficult to find where that turning chain is or what chain it is you're supposed to work into, or what, are you supposed to count that turning chain as a chain or not? So let's discuss that a little bit. In a pattern, if the designer wants you to count the turning chain, that would be your original chain 1 or your original chain 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is at the beginning of your rows, to count as a stitch, they will put in there chain 3 counts as a double crochet. If they want you to count it. If they don't want you to count it, it'll just say chain 3. And then you're expected to know that that's not supposed to count as a chain. So really pay attention to your written words or on your chart where those chain stitches are and if there are stitches getting worked into the chain itself. Now today we're going to look into how to do it so you can get a more visual idea of what's going on. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to chain 13 chains, and we're going to work double crochets for this video into the 4th chain from hook. Remember, you never count the chain that is on your hook. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. So I yarn over my hook, go into the 4th chain from hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. If you need a reminder on how to do double crochets, please check out the video on this channel for Beginner Basics Double Crochet, and I have all the tips and tricks right there for you. Now, I've completed 2 double crochets, and I'm coming back over here to the turning chains that we have completed. The reason I'm doing that right now is I want to take my marker and I want to put my marker into the 3rd chain of that turning chain. So if I count this turning chain, I count 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put my marker into 2 loops. So if it were the V stitches of the chain, I talked about that in the chain video, I'm going to put it through that and it leaves the butt of the stitch right underneath. The reason I'm putting it into the 3rd chain of the turning chain is because this video is all about turning chains, meaning we are actually going to count these 3 chains as a double crochet, meaning when we complete this row and come back, this is where our last stitch is going to go into. So I'm going to yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over, draw through 2. I'm going to do that all the way down the row to complete double crochets. Now, even though I'm using double crochets for this to show you guys, you can do this with half doubles, with doubles, with trebles, with any stitch that you think it needs it to be done. When you're using your markers, I think the markers are just wonderful, whether you're marking an actual stitch or the turning chain stitches. It's just a great visual cue for you to know, oh, that's where my hook is going to go. So you don't have to ponder and wonder. And especially if you put your work down and you come back to it later, you don't have to question yourself, oh, wait a minute, did I use that did I count that first turning chain as a stitch or did I not? If you already have a marker in it, you'll know. Now at this point, I'm at the end of my row. I've chained 3 so that I can jump up to my next level. For the double crochets, I have the same height as my double crochets for the next row. I'm going to take my marker, just like I did before, and this time, instead of pausing, I'm going to put it into the chain stitch that's right underneath the stitch or the loop that's on my hook, because that's going to be my last stitch, because that's the top of my turning chain. So I have it in there, it's marked, I can turn, and I'm ready to continue. Now here's something that's important to point out, because now that we are counting this chain as a stitch, no longer do we want to put our first double crochet or our first stitch right here, because this chain represents that space. If you were to think of it just going straight up and down, imagine those chain stitches are coming out of that space. So you will skip that first double crochet and go into the next double crochet over. Here we go, I'll complete this so you can see what it looks like. Once I put it down, you can see how this is where we were working the double crochets in the previous video. And here's where we're going to start our double crochet for this video. And that is because these chain 3 stitches represent the double crochet for that spot. And that would, again, would be written in your instructions if they want your turning chain to be counted as a stitch. Now I'm going to continue down here to the end of the row, so that way you can see how to work into the turning chain. We have already marked it again with that blue marker at the very beginning. We marked what the last chain stitch is, so that way we know how to get into it. You'll notice that I hold my hook like a pencil, but you can hold your hook like a pencil or like a knife, either way, whatever works for you. I have friends who even like to twirl around the hook a little bit as they're working it in order to grab stitches. I tend to use my finger a little bit more. All right, so I'm at the end of the row and I can see here, oh look, there's that turning chain and I've marked that stitch. I'm not going to take the marker out just so that you guys have a visual as we're looking at this video. And I'm going to yarn over just like I would a double crochet, and I am going to go into this chain through, so here, let's look at this way. You see how it looks like a V? I'm stabbing the middle of the V, so I end up getting the back loop of the V and the butt of the chain, and I yarn over and pull up a loop. Okay, the reason I do mine that way is because I feel like it looks much more clean over here. I'm not pulling out of joint one strand to complete a stitch, so it becomes a very nice clean edge over here. Can you see that? So take the time to go ahead and mark your stitch, mark your chain, your turning chain, so that you know where it is. And then when you go to work into it, you can kind of look here. We have this V looking, it looks like a V at the top of all of your stitches, and just like in your chain, I want you to stab the center of the V so that you get the back loop and the butt of the stitch, and that will make it look nice and clean. Now I'm going to move this aside, and I'm going to bring in some examples that you can see what I'm talking about. In the previous videos, we were using this swatch over here that's on my left to demonstrate how to do single crochets. These are half doubles, these are doubles, and these are trebles. And in those videos, we also talked about how we had the turning chains and we were not using them as stitches. So they were kind of hanging out here on the side. See how kind of unsightly that is? They kind of look like they're puckering out there. They're this out of place stitch, and it's like, well, wait a minute, it looks like I should be working into those stitches, but you weren't, like, because we told you, I had told you in the pattern not to work into that stitch, and we marked where our actual stitch point was, okay? Whereas over here, it's the same number of, I don't know if it's the same number of stitches, but we did single crochets, half doubles, doubles, and trebles, but this time we used our turning chains as actual stitches. And can you see how much more clean and crisp my edge is? And I don't get a really big gaping hole right here, okay, in between my stitches here, because I actually worked into, if I was up here, I actually worked into the V and the butt of the stitch to join. I know that there are some instructors that will tell people just to go into this space, this big old gapping space right there. I don't want you to do that because that does create big gapping spaces between your stitches, and nobody wants that. So if you actually work into the chain stitch of your turning chain, you get a nice, clean, crisp piece just like this. This would be a wonderful sampler scarf to start off on, and I'm going to give you that free pattern available on the website, so make sure you check that out. It'll be a combination of singles, half doubles, doubles, and trebles, and we will work into the turning chain stitches. So we've learned how to do the treble crochet. If you need a refresher on anything that we talked about today, whether it's a single, half double, double, or treble, go back and look at some of the other videos from the beginner basics right here on this channel, Marley Bird. Please don't forget to subscribe so that you can stay up to date whenever I release a new project or pattern or stitch or tips and tricks right here on this channel. I'd love to have you join me. Talk to you soon.